Hi, very good morning, afternoon, and evening to everyone. Right, welcome to the webinar. Right, on IBMI and Red Hat Ansible Automation Platform. I am Anthony Lin. I am the cloud automation specialist. Right, covering the ASEAN region under GEMS. Right, so we are basically covering the Southeast Asia region for my part. Right, so with me I have Meyang and Liu. Right, Meyang.
Hi, a very good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone, depend on where you are of the locations. My name is Mei Yang. I'm basically a solution architect covering Malaysia. So with me also, I have Liu. So Liu, hand over to you.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Liu. I'm Specialist Solution Architect for Malaysia, focusing on the Red Hat platform technologies. Hand over to you, Anthony.
Thanks, Meyang and Liu. Right, so we're going to start the webinar. Right, so the webinar today, it's going to cover a few areas. We are first going to look at the overview of the Red Hat Ansible Automation Platform, right, followed by an overview of IBMI. We will then look at how IBMI and Red Hat Ansible Automation Platform can work together, right? And then we will look at the use cases, followed by some next steps as well as Q&A, right? So it will be split right between the three of us. I'll be covering the first front portion. Miyang will take over from me, and Liu will take over on the use cases, basically on the POC that we did for one of our customers, right, over in this part of the world. So I'm just going to go very quickly over the Ansible, automation platform. So open hybrid cloud, right? It's really the Red Hat recommended strategy, right, for architecting, developing, and operating a hybrid mix of applications, right? It will allow us to deliver, right, the truly flexible cloud experience, right, with the speed, stability, as well as the scale that is required for digital business transformation. Right, today, we are mainly going to look at the management and automation system portion, right, with the focus and emphasis on Ansible automation itself. So I usually like to start with the automation ecosystem. If you were to look at the ecosystems, there are many components to it, right? So if you were to look at the areas around the reliability, right, it will touch on different parts of the automation ecosystem, right, such as things around the security and hardening, right, around compliance, right. You can be looking at the standard industry standards such as PCI DSS, the payment card industry, right. We have HIPAA compliance for healthcare services, and then CIS, right, NIST, right, just to name a few. Right, so those things can actually be pretty much worked upon by automation tools, right, such as the likes of Ansible, right? So we can actually help to do compliance, right, for Windows, Linux, Unix, different systems, even Cisco and Juniper routers, right? Stability-wise, we talk about CV response, right? Things around patch management, right? We can also work with vulnerability assessment tools such as Tenable Nexus, Nexpose Rapid7, etc. Right? So those are the ones. Things around content and workload management, right? We have things perhaps relating to continuous integration and deployment, right? We can be integrated with CI tools like Jenkins, for instance, right, to help out in the CD area. Right, then we can also be used in areas like disaster recovery, config management, and trying to bring up services in a particular order and sequence. For instance, like those complex apps like the SAP system, right? So some of the use cases can be around those things as well, right? You look at platform-wise, right? We mentioned physical, virtual, public clouds, private clouds, right? OpenStack, right? You can have AWS, Azure. You can have the vCenter, with VMware, right? Some of those things that is not mentioned here, right? We can also be used in the container Kubernetes environment, right? We have the core Kubernetes modules being certified recently, right? So those things can be used to manage Kubernetes platforms, right? So Other things, storage, right? The NetApp, for instance, it can be things like the S3 bucket in Amazon Web Service, right? Different things, right? Over here, this is on the network components, right? Ansible can be used, right, in the config management, right, for the networking gears and equipments such as the Cisco, the Juniper, the load balancers like the F5, the NetScalers, or in the areas of security network automation, right? Things like your checkpoint firewalls, your Palo Alto, your Fortinet. So we can do quite a lot of management from that perspective as well. Maybe creating ACL policies, VPN setup, or it can be things like VLAN configurations, right? Or even upgrading of the routers and switches, like the Cisco equipment. We can do that as well, right? So different aspects of it. Cutting across, right, we look at things like the ticketing systems, right, with integrations with ITSM, areas like AI ops, for instance, talking to the Dynatrace, right, the application performance monitoring tools, right? So all these things can all come together, right? So with monitoring systems, we can do things like auto remediation, right? So if you have an issue that requires, let's say, a reboot or restart of processes, that monitoring systems can be integrated with Ansible, right, via REST API call, right, and then we'll be able to perform remediation, right? So really, it cuts across different parts of the automation ecosystem, right? We look at it as a one single platform being able to touch on different pillars and parts of the enterprises. So Ansible automation platform, right? We often say that it is simple, agentless, and extensible, right? It is simple, right? Because it's written basically for the playbooks itself, right? It's written in YAML, right? It's human readable, right? It's pretty easy to understand, right? You don't have to learn programming language like Python or PowerShell to use it, right? So you can learn and pick it up and use it very quickly and easily, right? Agentless, right? We use OpenSSH, right, to connect to the Linux, the Unix, right? For the Cisco routers, for instance, right, running OpenSSH, or we can use netconf, right, to connect to Juniper routers, switches, for instance, right? Then the other things that we did or do with Windows equipment, right? Windows servers, for instance, right? We'll be using Windows Remote Management Protocol, right? WinRM to connect to them, right? Then for things like the Cisco ACI, we can use REST API to talk to them, right? So we do not need agents to be installed on the remote end, right? To be able to manage them, right? So everything is agentless via these few protocols, and we can quite easily manage a large number of different platforms from that perspective. Right, extensible, we have more than 4,000 modules as of Engine 2.9, right? So there are really things that, we can work on a lot of different things, right? But there may be situations whereby you may need to have a custom module in order to perform an action. And that can actually be done by Ansible, right? So what you can do is basically get someone to write, for instance, a Python or PowerShell custom modules to perform an action. And to do that, you can very easily find someone with that kind of skill sets in the job market today, right? So just to look at some of the statistics from GitHub, right? The October's 2020 report, we can see that Ansible is a top and trending Python open source project. Well, we have more than 5,000 unique contributors, right? It's very popular among the open source community, right? The top, you can see that it's TensorFlow, right? Really, we are the de facto standard in automation. If you were to look at it, we have massive growth in the job openings, right? Ansible Fest, which just concluded a few months ago, right? We have more than 30,000 registrations from across the globe. Developer validation as well, right? If you look at it, the top 10 framework on Stack Overflow, we are ranked number 9, right? In terms of the most loved, right? Career differentiator, right? The word Ansible is included in 2.8% of all US technology job descriptions. This is just a how it looks like, right? If you were to look at the different portion and parts of it, you have Tower, right, that allows you to do things like role-based control, right? You can do scheduling, centralized job. You have the REST API endpoint that you can use to interact with any systems that talks in REST. You can trigger Ansible Tower to perform an action, such as running a job template or workflow, right, via REST API, right? Then we have the the user interface, right, the UI that you can basically interact with. Underneath is the engine, right? Then a layer on top, right? We added the cloud.redhat.com, which is the software as a service layer, right? So we have Automation Hub, Analytics, Service Catalog inside. If you were to look at the Automation Hub, we have certified collections, right, from our partners like CyberArk, F5, Google, Amazon, Azure, right? Different partners that we have. Analytics itself, right? It allows us to see the performance of our clusters. You can look at things like the organizational statistics, like what is going on, right? We also have what we call as the ROI calculator, right? A collaboration with IDC, right? To look at how much savings and returns on investment you're getting when you use Ansible Tower and the automation platform, right? Services catalog, right, allows you to do things like self-service, right? It can actually also be integrated with, ServiceNow, right? So it allows you to do all these things in a seamless fashion. And really, it cuts across multiple use cases, which includes provisioning, config management, application deployment, continuous delivery, security compliance, orchestration, some of those things which we touched on earlier. It cuts on different aspects, right? Infra, network, security, cloud services, etc. So some of the key Ansible concepts, right? We just wanted to re-emphasize or recap as well, right? That Ansible is agentless, right? We drive automation without the use of agents installed on the target, right? We are using SSH, we are using NetConf, we are using REST API, we are using WinRM, right? So those are the ways in which we connect to all this target equipment, right? So we are decorative in nature, right? We favor declaring the state so that automation can reconcile with the desired state in an idempotent fashion, right? So we really want to look at how we can reach a final state, right? So for instance, over here you can see at this particular playbook, right? So what we are doing here is that we want to install and start the Apache service, right? So we are targeting on a set of HTTP servers, right? And then we are saying that we'll become the pseudo privileged user when running this particular playbook, right? So using the module, right? In this case, the YAM module, we say that the desired state that we want to be in is that the HTTPD package will be installed at the latest state. So it means that if the system does not have the HTTPD package, it will go install. And if it is present, it will check to make sure that whether or not it is at the latest version. If not, it will bring it to the latest version. And for here, right, we want to make sure that the service is started, right? It can be stopped, start, restarted, right, for instance. So what's really going on is that we will ensure that the system is always in the state that we want it to be in, right? Basically having the most up-to-date HTTPD package, making sure that the service is started, right? So that when you rerun this playbook, let's say 10 times, you always get the same kind of results because we are concerned about the desired state, right? This is how the inventory looks like. It's in INI file format, right? So the web service is all under the web group, right? So the DB servers under the DB group. You have your leaf, your spine switches, right? Your firewall, right? For instance, I have a checkpoint with the FQDN defined. The other concepts that we have, right? Roles, right? Basically, we try to write reusable set of tasks, templates, and files, right? And then we bundle them together. So we have a new concept called collections, whereby we will include the roles as well as the plugins and other binaries together, right? Automation Hub itself, basically it contains the collections, the roles that we have, right? It's similar to the Ansible Galaxy from the upstream that you will see, right? We have the on-prem as well as the cloud version that is being offered to subscribers of the Red Hat Ansible automation platform, right? Then Tower itself, we spoke about that, right? We have role-based control, the dynamic inventory, we have workflows inside that you can do and scale based on what you need to do, right? So different aspects that is being covered in this slide. So what are some of the common Ansible automation use cases, right? You can see that we have things like infra automation and orchestration. It covers the end-to-end, right? You can spin up virtual machine and using vCenter REST API, right? Basically, what we are doing is that we have a VMware module that allows us to do that. You can do that for cloud, right? Azure, Amazon, Google Cloud, right? Different things, right? Then the ITSM integration, right? With for instance, ServiceNow, right? The cyber integration, right? We can basically use the native integration that we have with CyberArk to do, credential retrieval, for instance. We are usually being used to integrate with, CI tools like Jenkins to do continuous deployment delivery, right? We can help out in the areas of compliance and hardening, patch management, which we spoke about earlier on, right? Public cloud automation, right? So many different clouds whereby we have modules available to talk to and interact with, right? Then other areas like being able to work with HashiCorp, Terraform, Packer, for perhaps things like golden image creation, helping out in the config management aspects where Terraform is perhaps being used to spin up the infrastructure, right? So other areas, Azure DevOps, Terraform, Ansible, right? We've seen that with some customers. Database management, disaster recovery automation, monitoring tools, and auto remediation, which we covered earlier as well during the starting of the presentation. Right. So other areas, right? VA, right? We spoke about that with Tenable Nexus, right? We actually can make use of REST API to launch a scan or get the results from the Nexus systems and determine what we want to do for the next step, right? Then antivirus management, right? The new security pillar that we have with Trend Micro, Symantec, right? Network automation, Windows automation, right? Security compliance, right? And then this thing is with the likes of SIEM, like IBM QRadar, like Splunk, right? Then you have IDS, IPS like Snort, and then the various firewall like the checkpoints, the Palo Alto, etc. Right? Then we look at other areas like the Kubernetes multi-cluster management, right? We work pretty closely with. There is a very closely integration, right, with the Red Hat Advanced Cluster Management, right? So you can use the Ansible to perform tasks which are outside of the clusters. For instance, configuring the global load balancer, and then or doing things like updating the ticket in ServiceNow, right? Whereas the ACM will basically perform application deployment on the Kubernetes cluster itself, with Ansible helping out in the things which is outside of the Kubernetes cluster. Right, so many different areas that we can look at, and of course, with the telco pillar, right, NFVI, RAN, the mobile core, those things we can work on, right? So I'm going to hand over to Mei Yang, right? This is just a very quick overview of what we have in Ansible Tower, right? Mei Yang, over to you.
Hi, thank you, Anthony, for the great overview and some of the in-depth on the Ansible automations. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let us have a view on the IBM I overview. So, what is IBM I? IBM, I think most of you or most of the people already know, right? It's referring to the International Business Machine Corporation. And what's the second I over here, right? The second I over here basically referring to standing for the integrated, right? Its architecture was initially created at a lower level with System 38 back in 1970s, and then grew into AS400, which maybe many of you heard about it, right? But over time, S400, which has its own proprietary software, grew out and merged with his underlying hardware and also with other systems with IBM. And now IBM I is the integrated operating environment developed by IBM for Power System, which consists of an operating system, database, middleware, and also development tools. So it is an application server with proven robustness, scalability, reliability, security, and also low cost of ownership compared to MIPS in IBM mainframe, which is also known as IBM Z. So there are two components in IBM I series servers, right? These two components basically stand for System License Internal Code, SLIC, and also Operating System 400, OS 400. SLIC provide the TIMI process control, resource management, integrated SQL databases, and also the security enforcement, network communication, storage management, and other primitive. So SLIC, right, basically is hardened and with a high performance layer of software at the lowest level, which is much like a Unix kernel, but only far more functional. Whereas OS 400, right, basically provide a high level functional based on these services to user and also to the application. OS 400 also provide a wide range of high level language runtime function, such as C, C++, COBOL, Fortran. OS 400 interact with the client-server graphic user interface, iSeries Navigator, which is currently known as IBM I Navigator in the latest release, right? And what kind of operating system they are running on, right? This operating system is an object-based. OS 400 keep all information as an object itself. All programs and operating system information such as user profile, database file, right, and also program, printer queue, and etc. have their own associated object type stored with the information. In the OS 400 architecture, the object type determines how the object contained information can be used. Therefore, right, this is impossible, right, to corrupt a program object by just modifying its code itself. So in other words, right, I will call it very secure and reliable, right? We can also use block-oriented terminal support, IBM 5250, to access the system. 5250 devices can be directly attached to the host or communicate remotely using the Synchronous Data Link Control, SDLC, at up to 9,600 bits per second. Devices can also be clustered or also be daisy chained. The IBM I contain ALPA logical partition, which allow multiple virtual systems to run on the single hardware footprint, which enable us, right, to run on multi-user and also multitasking secure system. IBM I are used by hundreds of thousands businesses around the world to run their mission-critical business applications. People basically are normally store their sensitive data, and it basically widely used in pharmaceutical and also banking financial organizations. So the system, right, are so proprietary, and basically many people are asking, will the IBM I dead or are they going to die soon? No, in a word, I will basically tell you that, right? And also arguably that the platform is more popular than ever. Why I'm saying that, right? Basically, there are 5 reasons why I mentioned about that, right? First, IBM I is scalable. Business can start with affordable 4 core of server and easily can go up to way to 256 core of machines. Second, the IBM I is securable when it's correctly configured and equipped with the right software itself, right? The third one is IBM I is very reliable, right? It's often say that, right, this platform just run all the time. In fact, right, I see that there's a customer run the machine, right, more than 1,000 over days without any downtime at all. It features the enterprise class of reliability, and also high availability tools are readily available for nearly 100% of uptime. Number 4, it is modern. Why I say it's modern, right? Besides its additional being able to run existing program, right, IBM I also support a healthy mix of native and also open source development. Yes, you are right. It really runs on open source development language such as SQL, Java, .NET, and PHP, and also C++. That's why we call it modern itself, right? Why is compatible, right? The outward compatibility of this platform protect your investment by avoiding expensive code of migration when platforms are updated. Organization in every industry around the world, right? Basically, they're still running on IBMI. It's formed the foundation for some of the most powerful server and also operating system on the market today. Power System and also IBMI, which are both alive and also kicking. And the platform continues to evolve and becoming increasingly robust, embarrassing modern technology, and also giving many of the world's top organizations a competitive edge. So with all those kind of good reasons stated before, right, there are no reason for us, right, to really marry this legacy system and also the Ansible automation system. Just like other integration, in order to marry these two systems, right, there are a few challenges that we need to be aware and also overcome. For example, IBMI administrator and also Ansible administrator come from two different worlds. We need to have a common understanding, play a key role over here. This is not surprising, right, that the IBMI administrator, right, do not know how to SSH into their IBMI itself, as he or she, right, might have never done it before. At the same time, right, it is not surprising that the Ansible administrator know nothing about the 5250 emulator. This is because they are all this while only handle the open system. The system requirement and prerequisites between these two systems also another challenge that we really need to looking at. Since we are using the IBMI Ansible collection to perform the testing for IBMI tasks, the prerequisite that need to be fulfilled in order for us to use the IBMI Ansible collection from the IBMI and right 5733 SC1 base and also option ones and 5770 DG1 Python 3 i2 case and Python 3 IBM DB, which are required to be installed. Whereas from the Ansible automation platform end, this is not necessary to use the same Python version as IBMI. However, the Ansible engine will need to be upgraded to version 2.9 in order for us to use the Ansible collection. Besides this, port 22, the port SSH, right, need to be enabled between the Ansible Tower and also IBMI server. So what is the benefit, right, to marry these two systems together? First, we can use this single pane of glass to automate entire system in our data center. We no longer have to use the different automation tool for the non-open system environment. So the automation can just be done using the single push button offer from the Ansible Tower itself. Right? Besides that, right, both IBMI administrator and also Ansible administrator can be cross-trained and upskill their knowledge on each product. So ladies and gentlemen, what is the use case for this? So let my colleagues, Mr. Liu Guohui, to share with you what's the use case that we have done to our customer. Mr. Liu, hand over to you.
Hi, thank you, Mei-Yang. Thank you, Anthony and Mei-Yang, sharing with us the Ansible automation overview and the introductions of IBMI and how IT optimizations can be executed by using Ansible automation platform. I'm great to talk about the use case of this Ansible automation platform on IBMI. This is the use case from one of the ASEAN FSI industry who are looking for automating the services in IBMI for their quarterly disaster recovery drill exercise. They are facing the challenges like resources allocations to handle manual management via Access Client Solution 5250 for task executions every quarterly disaster recovery drill exercise. We propose the Ansible automation platform to overcome their challenges to accomplish RTO, recovery time objective, improvement. Also, consistency and deployment integrity are ensured easily by automated tasks. Most importantly, productivity is expected to be improved as they would delegate tasks to operator instead of a bunch of engineers execute tasks at the midnight and get time off in the next day. Next, we look at the sample architectures as shown in this diagram. There is an all-in-one Ansible tower setup and network allocated on the host to be reachable to target host IBM server via SSH. There will be high availability design for Ansible Tower in production. 3 front-end web UI and active passive Progress SQL database. In the next slide, let's familiar some of the terminology in IBM like CL command, the control language command. To access the CL command, they are using 5250 emulator as shown in the diagram. This is a light text UI menu-based screen. Next, I would like to share how to run Ansible for IBM by using the Power IBM collections provided by IBM. The downloaded collections has to be placed in the same directory with the playbook as shown in the left diagram. The right diagram is how to call the downloaded collections in the playbook. Next, to summarize what we have learned from the use case, there are native CL command and program CL command, where program CL command is not able to be called by Ansible collections module. There will be a Q shell sessions after SSH connections established. Q shell is similar to a bash shell that we can run the command like df, pwd, ls, and etc. We also notice the q6.lib directory is the root mount point for CL library after SSH connection established. Well, that's all for me. Thank you for your interest and attention. We hope you will find this useful for your next IT optimization project. Anthony, hand over to you.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Liu. Thanks, Meiyang. Right. Thanks for going through, the IBMI as well as the use cases that we have done, in the POC. Right. So, just wanted to show some of the stuff that we will do for the next steps. Right. So, hopefully you guys have, managed to get some information from us. Right. Over the course of the last 30 minutes on, IBMI, Ansible automation platform in general. Right, and how the integration can work between the two. Right, just for you to get started. Right, you can look at some of the links right over here. Right, to get your hands dirty. Right, with the Ansible itself. We have workshops. You can look at the adoption journey. You can join our community, and definitely right look out in the space of how IBMI can work with the Red Hat Ansible automation platform. We have a lot of those resources available as well. Right, like the GitHub that Meiyang was showing earlier on, right? So we have come to the Q&A section, right? For this webinar. So feel free, right, to.
And now I'm going to hand this over to John, who's going to present a little bit on IBMI modules.
Hi, Ellie. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you help me to show the slides? Because there's the authentication issues from my side.
Yes, I can. Let me go ahead and share this. Yep.
So thanks for this opportunity. So the folks here provided the great sharings on Ansible and IBMI. Before the slides has been shown, I can do a little bit introduction of myself. So my name is Wang Yun, and I worked as business architect for IBMI platform in IBMI development team. So my focus area is cloud automation, system management, etc. So after this great session, I'll in addition, I'll share some more information about the Ansible collections we are having, and also some new strategy things for IBMI. So next page, please. So we act as one of the folks I just mentioned about the IBMI platform. Today we are more modernized than ever, I'll say. So we invested in this platform that's providing your car business for over 30 years, and we continue invested in different angles, such as the services, automation, cloud, high availability, open source languages, and different solutions. We have this open mind from our development team to provide modern technologies for our customers. So take like 7.4 as a instance, that we have our active solution to provide zero downtime architecture for the platforms for our customers to have the high availability to a very high level. And also we have opened up the platform with open APIs. For example, you can have RESTful APIs being created through different ways. You can have the wizard to open your RPG program to RESTful APIs. You also can create different APIs on top of the open source technologies. And also we will continue to invest what we have done successfully as a integrate the system. So we integrate the security, resiliency to protect your business and continue to solve your problems. And next page, please. So we started the Ansible, from last year, and this is not only the IBM stuff. It's actually the entire IBM system stuff that we supported different platforms as endpoints to do the system automations. So as you can see from the page, the right side of the page here, that we support like IBM, mainframe, AIX, and Power Linux, etc. To run your automations, kicked off by Ansible. And I noticed that in the in the questions, there's a question asking whether we have any plans for Ansible Tower on Power. So that could be something we can consider in the future. But right now, if you take a look at the Ansible engine, it is still running on x86 Linux for most of the time. But for IBM customers, you actually have a extra benefit that our team had ported the Ansible engine onto the IBM platform. So that you can run the open source version Ansible with the latest version on IBM as well, kicking everything off from the PACE environment. However, this is not a official support by Red Hat from now, but it is something we can support from IBM open source perspective. But we'll look for more use cases and requirements from the customers, that if you need more support, we can have further discussions on that. And one thing I want to mention is that IBM collections and modules are released in both ways of open source and certified software, which means that our modules are also certified in Red Hat Automation Platform. We encourage the customers go to that platform and subscribe the enterprise level of the support, because you'll get enterprise level support unless when you have the Ansible Tower and automation platform subscribed. With that, not only you can have your enterprise level support for Ansible, but you can also have those support for endpoint enterprise systems. Next page, please. And here are several use cases that our friends talked about some of the key use cases here, but I want to say that not only we released the building blocks as modules and collections and plugins and Ansible roles, but also we released different solution playbooks as to solve a specific use case. For example, the fixed management. We have several customers trying and already adopting our solution, fixed management solutions that they can automate their current PTF apply process for the automations. I heard about a ASEAN user stories today. I also worked with several ASEAN customers recently that they started to consider using Ansible for fixed management and CI/CD use cases that we have built in the community. So if you go to our GitHub repository, you'll find a use case directory where we put like 5 or 4 use cases over there, and we will keep adding things. And not only you can do the IBM related stuff, but also you can do the cloud stuff that you can do provisioning of the virtual machines. You can do the provision of the IBM in the IBM cloud or through the Power VC or through the OpenStack, etc. So I got a question in today as well that whether you need to have a Power VC or OpenStack installed in order to kick off your Ansible modules, the provisioning tasks. The answer is that if you are a data center user, I think the answer is yes. You need to have either OpenStack or the Power VC to kick off your automations. However, if you are a cloud user, for example, you have an IBM cloud or Power VS account, then you can kick off the provisioning tasks without Power VC because the IBM cloud will drive that for you. Next page, please. So yeah, we will continue invest in Ansible because we found that Ansible brought a lot of good things to our platform actually. So if you take a look at from this roadmap, we have like 3 months duration of the releasing the different things. So we have several releases in 2020, and we will invest in Ansible for 2021. And actually, our customers from high end to the mid and small customers, they all started to learn Ansible and started to consider Ansible as their automations. I have a customer who had over 500 IBM partitions, and they just use the Ansible to do their PTF management and also some of the provisioning work for their testing and the development of cloud, etc. So this is what I want to share with you, and thanks very much. And thanks, Ellie.
Absolutely. Now I would like to open up the floor for any questions. If anyone has any questions for our experts that are here today, please drop them in the Q&A area. And I would also like to remind everyone that there will be a follow-up email where you will get the recording to this webinar, plus both of the PowerPoint presentations that have been shared today. All right, well, I'm not seeing any questions come in yet. I'll give it another minute just to let people type stuff out. Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and end the webinar. Thank you, everyone, for attending. Thank you to our presenters and experts for coming to discuss IBM I and Ansible automation platform. And I hope everyone has a great week. Thank you.